Okay. Yep, that was my fault. You know how you talk and you got your mic muted. That's what happened. So you didn't hear all that, but rewind. So peace, everybody. And this show prove, you know what I'm talking about. And we are back again on another adventure. You know. And that was all my fault. So okay. Look. Check the messages. All right. So like I said, last strong we talked about the concepts of history. No, soft how, but it was all me. It was all me. Reload my selector. For sure. But thank you, Achoti Maria. That was all me. That was all me for sure. But yeah, we talked man, we just did so much last strong with, and we just came with it and came with it, you know. Like I say, I be trying to have an IQ bigger than a retarded mule, as as John G. Jackson was saying, you know what I'm talking about. So yeah, man, and we gonna keep on going with it, you know, with part 2, you know what I'm talking about. So here we are, and we gonna talk about, you know, the satellite of Kemet, you know what I'm saying. So let's get it going. Okay. 1 second. Let me make sure I got it. Okay, step 1. No problem. So we gonna start off with a video already. You know what I'm talking about? I'm just gonna put this out right here. You know what I'm talking about?
Life studying the history of the ancient Egyptians. Who were the ancient Egyptians? How did they look?
Voilà, les Égyptiens anciens ressemblaient à cette terre que vous voyez. Voici le premier roi de la terre.
Here you have the first king of the earth.
You call that like a Stephanie?
And the Egyptians, the ancient Egyptians, looked like this man.
Cet homme.
Wrong one. Look, I usually have these this
evolution of mankind.
Aujourd'hui, la science sait de façon sûre que l'humanité a pris naissance en Afrique, sous la latitude du Kenya, dans cette région qui est à cheval sur le Kenya, l'Éthiopie et la Tanzanie.
We are able to say scientifically today, to say with certainty that mankind was born in Africa, on the latitude more or less of Kenya, and that area which comprises.
We look at an unusual man who returned.
Ethiopia and Tanzania.
Et qui va même jusqu'en Afrique du Sud, suivant un axe nord-sud.
And going on a north-south axis all the way south to South Africa.
Or, une humanité qui est née sous une telle latitude au niveau de l'équateur n'aurait pas pu survivre si elle n'était pas pigmentée noire dès son apparition.
So it's clear that any humanity that had its birth in that region could not have survived in an equatorial region without pigmentation.
La nature ne crée rien au hasard et elle a protégé l'humanité qui est née sous l'équateur en Afrique par un écran de mélanine. C'est ce qui fait que les premiers hommes étaient nécessairement noirs tant qu'ils n'étaient pas encore sortis de l'Afrique.
Nature doesn't do anything by chance, and it's for that reason that humanity, mankind that was born in a sub-equatorial region was given melanin to protect its skin. And it's for that reason that it is clear, it is certain that first man had to be a black man.
C'est seulement quand cette humanité va sortir de l'Afrique pour aller peupler le reste de la terre qu'elle va changer d'aspect suivant les régions géographiques, et que les autres races vont apparaître.
It is only after that race left Africa to people other parts of the world that had different climatic phenomena that man changed and became and took on different aspects, had a different look.
Ces premiers hommes comprenaient en réalité 6 spécimens. L'humanité, la nature a créé 6 spécimens d'hommes avant d'arriver à l'homme que nous sommes aujourd'hui.
Nature created 6 specimens of man before we got to man as we know him today.
Les 3 premiers spécimens, je n'ai pas besoin de les nommer, n'ont pas atteint, dans l'état actuel de la recherche scientifique, un potentiel d'expansion leur permettant de sortir de l'Afrique. Donc, ils n'ont jamais été hors d'Afrique, dans l'état actuel des recherches.
According to the scientific information that we have now, it appears that the first 3 of these species, which is not necessary to name, never acquired the potential or never arrived at the potential for exporting or leaving their own area.
Non, n'ont jamais atteint un potentiel d'expansion pour sortir de l'Afrique.
They never had the potential to expand and to leave Africa.
Yes. Les 3 autres sont sortis de l'Afrique.
3 others did leave Africa.
Le 4e et le 5e ont disparu.
The 4th and the 5th of these species disappeared.
Il ne reste que le 6e qui est l'homme que nous sommes.
And what remains is man as we know him, that 6th species.
Le 5e, le 5e, c'est celui-là que j'ai projeté ici. Vous le voyez. Cet homme ressemble beaucoup à l'homme actuel, mais il n'est pas encore arrivé au stade de l'homme actuel.
C'est le 5e?
C'est le 5e.
This is the 5th of these species, which, as you will see, resembles very much man as we know him today.
Mais il n'était pas encore très différencié.
He was not yet but man as we know him today was not differentiated a great deal from this man.
Si vous le regardez, vous verrez que la différence qui le sépare de l'homme que nous sommes, c'est qu'il n'a pas de front. Vous voyez, les yeux sont presque à la place du front.
You will see that the major difference here is that the 5th species did not have a forehead. You'll see that the eyes are situated very close to the top of the head.
C'est très important ce détail, il faut le remarquer, il n'a pas de front. Donc il n'a pas, son cerveau antérieur est très différent du cerveau antérieur de l'homme actuel. Si vous le regardez, c'est comme s'il avait les yeux ici.
It's very important, this is a very important detail. It means that the brain inside was very different from the brain inside of man as we know him today.
Et quand on étudie son cerveau, quand on étudie l'anatomie de son cerveau, on voit qu'il n'a pas cette partie-là, ce cerveau antérieur.
And studying his brain,
ce qu'on appelle le lobe antérieur du cerveau, il ne l'a pas.
He does not have the anterior lobe of the brain. In anatomical studies, it has been determined that he did not have this anterior lobe.
C'est la grande différence entre lui et l'homo sapiens sapiens que nous sommes.
That is the major difference, the fundamental difference between Homo sapiens sapien, which is what we are.
Et ce spécimen n'a jamais pu sublimer la nature pour créer l'œuvre d'art.
This species was never able to overcome nature to an extent that he was able to create works of art.
Ensuite, je passe au suivant.
And this next slide.
Là, nous arrivons à l'homme comme vous et moi. C'est l'homme du milieu.
And now we have the man in the middle is the man that we are.
C'est le crâne du milieu. C'était un noir. C'est l'homme que nous appelons dans la littérature, si vous voulez, préhistorique, l'homme de Grimaldi.
This was a black man. The skull is that of a black man, which we call in prehistoric history the Grimaldi man.
On sait que c'était un homme de morphologie noire. Quand on voit sa morphologie, on voit que c'était un noir. Vous voyez bien, la forme du visage est très typique. Et nous l'avons comparé avec un crâne d'Africain d'aujourd'hui. Le crâne de gauche, c'est un crâne de Malien. que nous avons dans notre collection à Dakar, à l'IFAN. Et le crâne de droite, c'est le premier homme blanc qui apparaît sur la Terre, à la suite de la transformation de l'homme du milieu.
You can see in looking at the skull in the middle that the morphology of this skull is very much that of blacks. That is the skull of modern man. To the left of it, we have the skull of modern African man. It is one of those that is in our collection at the University of Dakar.
L'homme qui est à droite maintenant, on ne le verra que l'homme qui est au milieu est entré en Europe il y a 40 000 ans.
40,000 years ago, the man in the middle left Africa and went to Europe.
Il va vivre en Europe de moins 40 000 ans à moins 20 000 ans, et c'est pendant cette période d'adaptation à un climat extrêmement froid qui est très différent du climat actuel. Parce que c'est pendant la dernière glaciation que la Terre a connue et qui a duré 100 000 ans. Il va donner naissance, donc par mutation et adaptation, au troisième crâne de droite qui est l'homme de Cro-Magnon.
The skull at the extreme right of the screen is that of Cro-Magnon man. It was between 40 and 20,000 years ago that the man in the middle left Africa to go into Europe at a time during what is called the final or the last glaciation. The climate in Europe was extremely cold. It was much colder than it is now. And during this period of some 20,000 years, he underwent the adaptation to become what we know as white men.
Donc, c'est bel et bien, si on s'en tient sans préjugés, aux données rigoureusement scientifiques, nous sommes bien obligés d'affirmer en toute sérénité que c'est l'adaptation du grimaldien à ce climat froid qui a donné naissance finalement au type qu'on appelle conventionnellement maintenant le type leucoderme ou l'homme blanc. Le blanc est sorti du noir à la suite d'un processus d'adaptation à un climat froid. Et cela, tous les spécialistes aujourd'hui le savent dans leur fort intérieur, même s'ils ne le disent pas avec autant de netteté.
It is very clear to all of the scientists involved in this field, even if they are only able to say it within themselves and unable to say it publicly, that the man that we know conventionally to be a white man evolved from a black man over a period of some 20,000 years of adaptation to a different climate. And if we are to say with any serenity, resting totally on scientific data, that is the conclusion that we must come to.
Donc, nous voyons bien que l'humanité
All right. So I'm sure all y'all heard that. I think it's better for Cheikh Anta Diop to say it himself than for me to say it for him. You know what I'm talking about? Okay, so for those who don't know, that's Dr. Cheikh Anta Diop, you know, out of that Senegal, and he did he has so many works, you know, I mean, so many books, you know, Civilization about I could go, you know, and pull at least 2 out right now, you know, Civilization of barbarism, pre-colonial Black Africa, but yeah, man, I had, you know, like I said, I had to bring him out, you know what I'm saying? Look at him, you know, he's shined up, you know what I'm talking about? You know, all regal, you know what I'm talking about? But yeah, I think that video was good to start off with so it could finally be broke, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. I told him around for sure. Yeah, he did. But so some people may not know, you know. So yes, you know, civilization started in what we call Africa, you know. Check out Louis B. Leakey and, you know, his findings, and that you know, that'll help you out. And then, you know, DNA evidence and all of that, man. But you know, it sort of sets the scene of what we talking about. Who was the translator? That's me. What? I don't know. I don't know who that woman is. Probably a college student for all I know. I don't know who that woman is. I don't know her, but I do know that she's done more than one translation with Cheikh Diop, though. You know, well, more than makes me wonder how did one of just disappear. Many reasons. Akira. I mean, depending on habitat, war, resources, birth and death mortality rate. Oh, who you at? That one probably. Oh, you know, yeah, she young in that picture, but young in that video, but like, somebody grab Abba. Somebody grab it. But yeah, you must got an old friend or an elder friend. Like, who that woman is? I don't know. But yeah, Mike. You know, there's many reasons. I know you playing. But I go along with you. You know, I go along with you. So yeah, there's many reasons. You know, many reasons. You know, some survival of the fittest, man. It's the same thing with different species of or offshoot species of certain animals. You know what I'm saying? Like saber-tooth tiger. You don't see them no more. You know, saber-tooth tiger. You know, the woolly mammoth. You know what I'm saying? Dinosaurs. Same thing, man. Survival of the villages or climate change, whatever. You know, whatever you want to call it. You know, they came. They were useful for a minute, and then you know they had to go. You know, that's the best I can put it. You know what I'm talking about? So yeah. All right. Now, this is the definition of a satellite. You know, celestial body orbiting another or of larger size, a manufactured object or vehicle intended to orbit the Earth, the Moon, or another celestial body. Someone or something attendant, subordinate, or dependent, especially a country politically and economically dominated or controlled by another more powerful country. A usually independent urban community situated near but not immediately adjacent to a larger city. And a higher agent or obsequious follower. And that's the definition. So this is why, well, we'll get into that because, like I say, we're still dealing with destruction of black civilization by Chancellor Williams, right? But before we get to that, we got to get to, you know, the man as he stands, you know, Dr. John Henry Clarke, everybody. You know, I got to bring him in.
The subject of black history is in dispute in some quarters. A man named J.A. Rogers, who was laughed at 20, 30 years ago, not taken seriously at all, is being taken very seriously these days. A new book called Great Black Men of Color has been edited by our guest tonight, Professor John Henry Clarke. Professor Clarke, there are some rather startling, to put it mildly, revelations made in the book about certain presumed facts of history that I'm certain will not stick with the general white historical community?
Well, I'll tell you, it became almost necessary for the Europeans to whiten up a part of black history when they began to take over the world in the 15th and the 16th century. And what Rogers has done is gone back and taken a whole lot of the white away and showed you the original black faces of certain people in history. In this 2-volume work, World's Great Men of Color, Volume 1 is devoted to the Old World, and Volume 2 is devoted to the New World. The first thing he does is to put Egypt in proper context and to show Egypt and the great personalities of ancient Egypt as black people. And it might be startling, but he reveals that Cleopatra did not look like Elizabeth Taylor and wasn't a white woman at all. And I think his book starts in Egypt with the other great characters in Egypt, Imhotep, the real father of medicine, father of architecture, builder of the step pyramids, forerunner of astronomer, a man who was accepted as a god in Europe long before the birth of Christ. Imhotep lived about 5,000 years ago. And early Europe accepted quite a few Africans as deities. And Imhotep was one of them. He opens the book actually with this great African who was the world's first multi-genius.
You said that Rogers put Egypt in its proper perspective. What did you mean by that?
I mean, if European historians acknowledge that ancient Egypt was a black nation, then they would have thrown all Western history out of kilter, because Western historiography is based on the mistaken concept that if Egypt wasn't European, it was at least Oriental. It was neither. Because Rogers traced, as many competent historians, black and white, have already done, the southern origins of Egypt, and that the people who would later be called Egyptians came from deep within Africa, maybe Ethiopia and Somaliland. And they kept good relationships, good and bad, like all families, with the people to the south all of this time. And the proof is positive. And do not think that Rogers is out on a black thing, or that most black historians are out on a solely black thing. Most of us got our most radical information from white writers that other white historians do not read, such as Gerald Massey and his 6-volume classic work called Egypt, Light of the World, which proved positively that ancient Egyptians were black. Count Vorez and his Ruins of Empires, Gustav Hearns in a 6-volume work, Researches in the Ancient History. The early work of the American Egyptologist Breasted, Sir Wallace Budge. And so we are going to radical historians, especially Massey and his Natural Genesis and the Book of the Beginning, establish behind them the black perspectives in history. And if white historians accept the black perspectives in history, they would have to admit that the white perspectives in history is wrong. And I'm afraid they're not quite equal to that right now.
Well, what is the, if there is a black perspective in history, there is a white perspective in history. Mm-hmm. And you're saying, I'm assuming, that history is being manipulated for an end.
In itself.
In itself.
History, the Europeans began to manipulate history when they rose and began to expand into the broader world in the 15th and the 16th century, because they had to justify the slave trade and they had to justify the colonial system that followed. And modern racism has its incubation in that period. You cannot enslave a man and say he's a human being, that he has humanity, and that he was one of the forerunners of the world's religion. You cannot enslave an African and say this about him, because if you say he's a human being, then you're saying he's an extension of you. Then you cannot sell an African, Christianity and call him a heathen and acknowledge the African contribution toward the creation of Christianity. So it's a contradiction in acknowledging that the man created Christianity, then come back and say that you are selling him Christianity because he is a heathen. So the European had to literally strip history of the contributions of non-European people. To a certain extent, they did this in Asia. Now, what Rogers has done in these two books is to go back and set history in some kind of prospectus based on this information. And all of the information did not come from black historians. It came from the best records available from all of them.
Now, speaking of information, Rogers has alleged some very startling things, and we're using that word.
Okay. First, let me just say shout out to Chief because he had this on his IG, you know. And I saw it, and you know, this was like one interview I've never seen before, you know. But I would say, you know, there is a wealth of interviews and talks that a lot of us don't know about, or you know, unless you lived during that time, and you know, you wouldn't know unless you watched it yourself. You know, I felt the same way about like our people from BT, not, you know, new BT, but old BT, like old BT. You know, when I found out that that was on, you know, BT, and I actually watched, you know, episodes, you know, there was even the episode where Shahraz Ali was on, you know, and I was like, wow. You know, usually, you know, I've always watched BT for, you know, videos. We all watch them for the videos, you know, video song and all that. And others, ain't gonna tell. Ain't gonna tell. But yeah, you know, but before all of that, there were shows like, you know, where you have, you know, melanin rich people dialoguing and discussing, not arguing in the sense, but actually debating and discussing and actually, you know, talking about certain issues, you know, that affect themselves and affect the world they were in, man. And sometimes, you know, because we're so caught up on the present, we don't see, you know, what kind of a past wealth that we have in terms of these knowledgeable people. You know what I'm saying? Well, maybe threats were made in order to make the program more mindless, less educational. Then he just said, well, we'll just take it. Yeah. I mean, I mean, it's all in the manual. I mean, it's all in the manual. You know what I'm saying? Oh, it can't be yours for long. It may look. I mean that ain't none of my business. But hey, could you know? Hey, it is what it is. You know, outside looking in. But it's all in the manual. You know, when you know if they got a good thing, take it by force if necessary. See, it's in the manual. You know, same thing with dang on. You know, Ebony and Jet. You know, because I'm from, you know, Chicago, and I've always grew up, you know, looking at that Ebony Jet building, you know, since I was a kid. You know, I knew where it was, it's right on Michigan Ave. You know what? You know what you gotta do to get a building on Michigan Ave. You know, but it's right there, man. And it is what it is, but yeah, man, it's all in the manual. So yeah, you know, but yeah, that's Dr. John Henry Clarke. You know what I'm talking about? All right, so here we go. Now, Ethiopia was the first established country on Earth, and Ethiopia, and the Ethiopians were the first to set up the worship of the gods, and to establish laws. The later ages gained from this ancient empire the fundamental principles upon which republican governments are founded. I had some wonderful Ethiopians, so they should cut your empire. If you don't know, I think it's easier to incentivize that than to threaten. A lot of the more destructive program was heavily protested, but they survived somehow. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Well, it's all psychological warfare, Master Mignolet. You know what I'm talking about? It's all psychological warfare. That's all it is. You know what I'm saying? And somebody got to give. If you don't hold up the front, it's gonna get away. You know what I'm saying? Can threats be masked and incentives? Depending on the intent, I would say. We're used to thinking of threats is if you don't do this is going there has to be a consequence. With an incentive, it's like it can be but it's probably all in the wording. You know what I'm saying? Probably like a 360 deal. That's the first thing. Probably like 360 deal. It may look like an incentive, but behind it there's a threat in a sense. Because if you don't do what you're supposed to do, if you don't make such albums, then there's the liability or threat that comes your way. You know what I'm saying? Something like that. So yeah, it can be. I think about it. But yeah, it would be better for everyone here if you just play ball on this threat. Yeah, see, it depends. Like I said, it depends on the wording and how you voice it. You know what I'm saying? Speech and oratory is very important in such things like that, because you can be threatful but not seem like it at all. That's where the mind tricks come into, if you think about it. So yeah, man. But as you can see, as was said, Ethiopia was the first established country. So a lot that goes into, what do we really know about, that horn of Africa that's not being spoken of or being told. You know what I'm talking about? We're throwing this insert money. Yeah, for sure. What can you really find if you really dig deeper? In certain countries like the Sudan and Ethiopia, even Somaliland and Somalia and Eritrea and things like that. There's a lot to think about, because these places did have old kingdoms, but comes to mind. Okay. Want to be incentive as a threat. I think no. The threat comes. Eat these dang on veggies. Don't you know there's somebody starving in sub country? There it is. That's what it is. Yeah, I never saw these kinds of documentaries when I was growing up. It was very rare to see any historical content done by people color back then. Soft Harvard, it could be attributed to where you're from. That may be it, that may not be it. I mean, I knew about Tony Brown not as a kid. Later, well, did I? I think he had a PBS show, but that's childhood memory, so don't quote me on that. It felt like he was on PBS for us or WTTW. That's but I think he was on PBS. But I'm I hated that one. You don't know how good you have it. Exactly. You know. Exactly. You don't know how good you have it. You just ungrateful. You know? But yeah. So, okay. In this one, Egypt has had no infancy because its first colonists had been civilized in Ethiopia. Egypt did not begin with menace. Um, this is also in one of the Ethiopians of the ancient Kushite Empire. Okay, now this is the Pharaoh menace. I just chose this picture because I just chose it, but he's credited with being the unifier of the two lands, which is Upper and Lower Egypt. Now, when you think about Egypt, you gotta understand something. This is why she says like the continent is, we think of the continent is upside down. South is, South Africa is actually North Africa, and other way around. But with Egypt, North is South and South is North. Okay, so Lower Egypt is what you would consider North, and Upper Egypt is what you would consider South. Things like that. That's true. Small farming town in California, they kept some. Yeah, exactly. You see, but if you probably went to a big city, you probably could watch it. you know what I'm talking about. Yes. I'll get to the Children Moran. Yeah, based on the Florida River. Yeah, based on the Nile. Nile is long. You got the white and blue Nile and things like that. It's a very long river. It's it's the largest river in the world. But and this is one of the great rivers that housed civilization. We call it Nile Valley civilization. Have the same thing with the Tigris and Euphrates and things like that, right? So, his that's not really his name. That's basically like a royal name. It means he who endures. But sometimes he's mixed up with the pharaoh Narmer, who you see in the Narmer palette of subjugating Upper and Lower Egypt as well. But yes, same, sometimes same guy. When it when it comes to how ancient the civilization is, a lot of things are lost. In a sense. Yeah, I realize now Delta is north, Delta. Delta's always south. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you right. So he's the first one to unite the two lands, right? So the Bible proves their relationship. It names the sons of Ham as Cush, Mizraim, Put, and the race of Canaan. Mizraim peopled Egypt, and Canaan, the land later possessed by the Hebrews. Put, located in Africa, and Cush extended his colonies over a wide domain. Now that actually comes from the philosophy of ancient history by Bunsen, but it's also in the wonderful Ethiopians of the ancient Kushite Empire. Peace, Chief. Peace to the Chief. You know what I'm talking about. Good to have y'all. But you see these names in the Bible, and you probably don't know what it means. So in historical context, this is what we're talking about. We're talking about now a lineage, and also a lineage that basically brought forth early civilization. So when you see Cush, like for me, because I would read these books, when I saw Cush in the Bible, I already knew who they were talking about. and things like that. So when Chief says, that the Egyptians were Hamites, he's not wrong. And this shows that he's not wrong. But it's already in the Bible. But not only do you just see in the Bible, this is actually in a historical context. You know what I'm talking about? So we can add on to, what Chief just, was given. You know what I'm talking about? But yeah. So when you see, like I say, you see these names in the Bible, now you can put a name to a face or people to a lineage. You know what I'm talking about? So when you see Mizraim, they're talking about Egypt. When you see Cush, they're talking about, the Sudan, Ethiopia, places like that. Okay, now this is from Genesis 10:6. And the sons of Ham, Cush, Mizraim, Phut, and Canaan. Okay. Now this is also in the Bible. It's Isaiah 11:11. On that day, the Lord will extend his hand yet a second time to recover the remnant that is left of his people from Assyria, from Egypt, from Pathos, and Ethiopia, from Elam, from Shinar, and from Hamath, from all the coastlands of the sea. So that's just the add on more to it. But usually, depending on which version, they would depending on which version you see, some of these would actually be other states, and that you could put into context. Like Shinar should be Babylon, and I forget what Hammond is, but yeah. Okay. Now, the Egyptians said that they and their religion had come from the land of Punt. Punt is generally accepted today to have been Somaliland south of Nubia. So, in context, when people say, "Oh, the Egyptians, weren't black," or the Egyptians weren't melanin rich, well, they came from they came from the Horn of Africa, So if you look at the people, from those regions or around that region, you can get bigger context on what they look like. Got to understand migrations. People leave certain places or they leave ancestral homelands to go someplace better and things like that, or to go someplace where they can build something that they probably couldn't build in their own homeland and things like that. But did they look like Iman and Nipsey Hussle and all them? Yes. They already tells you where they come from, so you just need to look at people from that region, and like I say, man, you be like, oh, so that's what they look like. And if you just look at them long enough, you be like, yeah. Like Haley, well, who could he resemble? I want to say, I can't put a name to it just yet. Maybe Tutmosis. Yeah, just still pretty dark. Yes. Like for instance, South Harbor. Okay. Now I gotta remember. Oh, this is so not my. Okay, the president after Nasser, the Egyptian president after Nasser, Louis Gossett Jr. played him in a television movie. Oh, I know his name. He signed the peace accords. Look, I know all these things, but I can't remember his name. And he was melanated. He was melanated. They killed him though, but he got shot. But yeah, he signed the peace accords with Israel and seceded territory to him. But oh man, what was his name? Okay, there's Nasser. Gamal Abdel Nasser. What's his name? Oh man, because my Bobby. There we go. Thanks, Steve. Anwar Sadat. Yeah, Anwar. Yeah, he's melanin. Yeah, he was melanin rich. You know what I'm saying? Not jet black, but yeah, he was brown, man. Gordon? No. Chief got it right. Chief, no. Yeah, but Anwar's not. You know, it was like it's there because I used to always my Baba used to always talk about him, and he's like, you need to watch that. You know that movie with Louis Gossett Jr. about Anwar Sadat. He said he was one of them Cushites, you know, and my Baba used to always act it out. You know, he said, I'm returning. You know. Returning what was lost to my people. But yeah, man. I remember the movie. See? but yeah, you know. Now, Egypt was inhabited in ancient days by two races or two distinct divisions of one race. Ancient records all testify that the ruling class in those times was Ethiopian, and they founded the powerful priest caste. Yeah, it was a good listen to. Yeah, it was. It really was. You know, I liked it. You know what I'm saying? You know, when I checked it out, because there are not many movies on the subject. You know, because I was like I was big into, you know, the basically the Arab, I just say the Arab Israeli conflicts, you know what I'm talking about, and Anwar Sadat, you know, was one of them, man. And but you know, like I said, my Bible put me on to him and things like that, man. And yeah, man, it was good, but even in Destruction of Black Civilization, you have Chancellor Williams talk about, you know, these two distinct races, you know, where he says one was Asian. You know, he doesn't, you know, you can't look at it like Far East Asians, but then, you know, and things like that. Well, you know, but then, you know, that population gets taken over by menace and things that's why he unites the two lands in a sense, you know, and he also kicks those Asians out, you know what I'm saying, and things like that, you know. But yeah, now they could have been a division of the same one race or not, you know, but you know what I'm saying. We do know that the ruling class, you know, was Ethiopian, and the priestly caste was also Ethiopian. You know what I'm saying? Now you also have to think of, you know, that if you know, the priestly caste was Ethiopian, you gotta understand that also that the pharaoh was, you know, basically the head priest. So what does that tell you? That he had lineage coming from where? You know, Ethiopia, you know, things like that, you know. So the native name of Egypt was Kim, you know, the black land. The name came not so much from the color of the soil as the hue of the inhabitants. Egypt was called the gift of the Nile because Lower Egypt was formed out of the soil brought down by the mighty river. Without the Nile, Egypt would be but a desert. The ancient people seem to know more about the sources of the Nile than later nations. You know, Also, what you have to understand that basically the whole Sahara at one point in time, had greenery. You know what I'm saying? It was lush with vegetation and things like that. But then, climate change happened, waters recede, and then it became a desert. And then you have this one valley, this Nile Valley, with land, but it's swamped on all sides of desert. You know what I'm saying? But also we give the name Kemet, just in case you hear this name. That's yeah. And you don't know where it came from. That's where it came from. I mean, it there's many types of spelling for it. I've seen, Kem, Khem, Chem. You may see more than one spelling even in this slide, but that's because I'm just really, quoting the actual source, how they wrote it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, the Nile is drying up, but you can say the same thing about some place, a river here called the Mississippi. That was also what likened to the Nile. In some places, the Mississippi is drying up, or certain rivers on the West Coast is drying up. You know what I'm saying? I would think, bruh, you know what I'm saying? But yeah. Okay. Now, Theodore Sakulas says in book 3, the Ethiopians say that the Egyptians are a colony drawn out of them by Osiris, and that Egypt was formerly no part of the continent, but a sea at the beginning of the world, and that it was afterwards made land by the river Nile. So I know we look at Osiris or Osar, now like a deity, but in ancient times, you'll see this in certain writings. Credit that these people before they were deified were actually people. You know what I'm saying? And here you have an account where they say, oh well, they were a colony. You know what I'm saying? They mean that they came from somewhere. They came from a more powerful place. Just like you see, where did the English colony come from? They came from England. They didn't come, they came from here, and they did a bunch of things, landed on Plymouth Rock, and then Plymouth Rock landed on us. Thanksgiving and King Philip's War, and then the Pequot wars, and whew, just a lot. And then she, like I said, she broke it down in the real Thanksgiving, so I don't really have to say. But if you look at it like that, like I say, they were a colony. They were what? Basically colonizers. But we don't look at it in the same European context of a way. You know what I'm saying? These were people that saw lush land and they built on it. Now, did they fight other people for it? Most likely, yeah. You know what I'm saying? And they did. They had to unite the land, because at one point in time there were a bunch of kings. You know what I'm saying? And then that's when Menes or Namir came through and said, "Nah, we gonna be one king." Because if you look at the picture, he's wearing the double crown. At one point, one crown was a symbol of Upper Egypt, and the other crown was symbol for Lower Egypt. And then when he united the land, that's why it's called the double crown, because he wears both crowns of the two lands. That could be look, you can write a story all about that. Look, you're looking for a Game of Thrones novel with nothing but black people, nothing but melody rich people. There you have it. All you gotta do is just look at your history. You know what I'm talking about, and you can make it interesting. You know what I'm saying? But if I would also say like Chancellor Williams, well no, Dr. John Henry Clarke used to say how old Egypt was. So if Egypt was that old, then how old are the Nubians, Ethiopians? You got to think along those lines. If they already came from an old people, you be like, well, how old are them people, and what do we really know about them? There's a lot of there's a lot of unanswered questions. You know what I'm talking about? But yeah, okay. In ancient ages, the Egyptians followed the lead of the Ethiopians to battle. And it is instinctive to do today. Cushites were the backbone of the Egyptian armies in the earliest ages. The Egyptians had no warlike qualities. It was the Cushite who was the head and brains of the foreign conquest. And I've already I've said it, but that was on retreat. How the Egyptians would recruit from Ethiopia or Nubia, but they would recruit from from the door, but they recruit from Nubia, and these warriors would be, so fierce in battle that they end up leaving the army. You know what I'm saying? They will become the generals. Not so you have to look at it as not only were they the priestly caste, they were also, the warrior class. You know what I'm saying? And I also talked about the Kermans and their phenomenal archery, because they were phenomenal archers. They like it was said, they could shoot your eye out with precision. Like dead hit your eye. Dead eye, bow. Bang bang. But yeah, and it will also be these people that would later, fight the Romans and, retake Egypt. But that's long down the line. Like I said, we could talk about this for a long time, but it's all to show you that, that the satellite image, of Egypt always maintained. I mean, we recruiting from home, we always going back home, to get warriors, priests and whatnot. We, always, because we're that satellite. You can sort of like it, in a sense, to during the Cold War era, with the USSR and its block of satellite countries, China, Poland and East Berlin, and then you have basically America, and the Europe, other allied satellite states, on the western end, and things like that. It's the same thing in a sense. You just can't put a European context on it. You know what I'm saying? But it's the same thing. That's why Egypt is a satellite country of Ethiopia. You know what I'm saying? Like I gave the example of Abu Simbel. How it was basically erected facing the, I want to say something, but facing, Nubia, just to say that, hey, we come from the same lineage as you. We know where we come from, and we're like you. You know what I'm talking about? but like in this contest, they're fierce, fierce warlike people. It will be these people that, give Egypt empire. And it will be these people that kick all the foreign invaders out. You know what I'm talking about? Hyksos, Hittite, Greeks, Roman, whatever. But also, you have to also bring into context that, because this is going to be brought up. And this one person is going to be brought up. Because even, you had Dr. John said, Cleopatra did not look like Elizabeth Taylor. If you saw the movie, that's a 3-hour movie, but it was good. Lot of good actors, but she didn't, but you would have, detractors say, but she was Macedonian. Yeah, she had Macedonian lineage, but you also have to look at it. The fact is, one, you're occupying a kingdom and you're a foreigner. Either they're going to take you out and replace somebody with their own lineage. So unless they always outsource their women to Macedonia to purify the bloodline, like like what Egyptians would do, they would always marry somebody in their family. But unless they did something like that, then that girl probably looked like, let's say, Vanessa Williams, Mariah Carey, Nicole Larry Parker, any cute light-skinned girl you could think of. She probably looked like that. She probably looked like Lena Horne for all we know. You know what I'm saying? But did she really look, like a real Macedonian woman? No. Ain't all the black people gonna go fall on some shit that don't look like them. But so, but yeah, and like you said, that goes with with the basically the one drop rule. If you got one drop, yeah, you one of us. And that's the rule. It's in the manual. Let's see. That's why most valuable ancient artifacts ended up in your art from the Kush. Yeah. Also, there's a lot of things that can be found, not just taken from me, but also put underwater. Like the palace of Cleopatra was actually put on underwater, because of the earthquakes and things and the receding of the coastline. But also, like if you look at, the Sudan and things like that, because of the Suez Canal, there was a lot of, okay, I don't know you. Security! So, the Suez Canal, I was talking about Suez Canal. So, it flooded a lot of villages and ancient ruins that nobody talks about. Nobody talks about it, and it, migrated people from those areas because of the Suez Canal, but, and that was, turn of the century, turn of the, 21st century, during basically World War I and things like that, but that also happened. So there's a lot of things you probably don't know. There's a lot of things probably buried underwater that don't nobody go to look at or anything like that you probably find that could prove a lot. You know what I'm saying? So yeah. here's another video. Okay, since we were sort of talking about battle, that's the most step out of that Austin, Texas. You know what I'm talking about? But he does African sword arts and things like that. And one sword art he works with is with the Khopesh, which is the Egyptian, what we've always called the Egyptian sickle sword, but it's called the Khopesh. I like watching metallurgy and blacksmithing. So when I like seeing how that was made. Usually at that time was made of bronze and copper and things like that. But it's important to see how that sword was actually used and moved and things like that, because you don't know. Now you can see how you have Euros that will reenact Spartan 300 and Romans, the Greek phalanx, and if you pay attention, watch things like I have, and the Roman, not the turtle, the testudo, which you will see, but they also have it's hard to explain. But you sort of, I tell you where you go see it though. You'll see it in the HBO series Rome, where they switch, and that's literally how they fought, and things like that. So yeah, but you have all these reenactors. But when it comes to things, where melanin rich people, sort of their arts and things like that, their martial sciences, you don't know nothing about them. You can't, you don't know nothing about them. So I've always thought it was important to see how these people fought, and then how they won battles, how they waged war. Usually with a Khopesh, you have a big shield, with some cow skin on it. But it's important to see, Now the Eternal City. What we getting into is we talking about Thebes. Now, just in case if you don't know, Thebes, there's two. There's one in Greece, and then there's one in Kemet. But we're talking about the one in Kemet. That Thebes, in Greece. That's a different story. Okay, now the history of Black Africa might well begin at Thebes, for this was truly the eternal city of the blacks. That presented the most compelling evidence that they were the city builders of earliest civilization in Kemet, later called Egypt, as well as the great civilization in the south. The founders of Thebes, like the black state of which it was the center, goes back so far in prehistory that not even a general Stone Age period can be suggested. So usually there's always in a sense a civilizational level up. And basically what it's saying is they didn't have a Stone Age, no. That's the marvel of the civilization. Stone Age? What you talking about? It's like out. I ain't gonna call you out. But it's like, hey, we been like this. Now you can say, usually, you always have those ancient alien, things like get it from there, pyramids or like by aliens and things like that, UFOs and things like that. But like I say, this is an old people, you know what I'm saying? And yeah, these cities are very old. So I would say that there's even a lot that you don't know about. So like this, like City of Thebes is a lot you don't know, because that's in the upper Egypt city. You know what I'm saying? And it was the seat of power at one point in time. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, man, it gets that way. You know what I'm talking about? And we that's sort of the onus of melanin rich archaeology, to look at these places and see and keep on digging. Keep on digging, because you never know what's gonna turn up. And if you look, you still got Euro and Arab archaeologists still digging to this day, looking for stuff and finding things, they ain't telling you about, but they are still finding things, in that place, or in this valley, that they still baffles their mind. But they don't even do that with Rome. But they talk about how good Rome is. They don't even do that with Greece, and they talk about how good Greece is, But they still dig, where your peoples come from. Well, no, not literally your people, but you get what I'm saying. So, the early population of Thebes was Nubian. The reign of Menes was nearer our time than 4000 BC. One of the temples recorded calls him a Theban. Thebes was settled from Meroe. Menes had been a priest of Upper Egypt, the older of the two countries, which means Lower Egypt. But Meroe is basically the capital for Kush, if you don't know, so which is in present day Sudan. But that just goes to show you that the people that came from Meroe founded Thebes. Like I say, satellite is still there. It's still there. You see where it's coming from. These people came from all the way from, basically Somalia, and then, or that region. They came from that horn, and then they kept on coming up, came up little, and kept on coming. They didn't stop coming, and then, it didn't just start with Menes. They were already there, what I'm saying? He's just the one that just united the two lands, what I'm talking about? But yeah. Okay. Now, one of these early names for Thebes was the No, and the Na-Amun of the Bible and ancient Hebrew. Writer of and ancient Hebrew writers. But the African name was Wose. And like the Greek Theobald, which refers to all of Upper Ethiopia or Upper Egypt, the blacks also made the distinction between Wose, the Theobald, and Noe, Thebes, the university city. Another point of the highest importance here is the African name for Thebes, and not only comes from the south, as Nims pointed out, but the name itself is the name of the imperial scepter of Ethiopia, a golden staff ribboned with ostrich feathers at the top. So this is a place to rule. You know what I'm talking about? And the original name for the city was Norway. Now the name for the Upper Egyptian region or state, you could say, was Wose. You know, so it's always important. Like, we've always called Egypt Egypt, and then we find out that it's not really Egypt, but it's Kemet or Kim. These places actually had other names, you know. So we're still looking at it from a Euro, mainly Greek, but a Eurocentric outlook. Same thing with, with Ethiopia, came from the Greeks, Ethiops, and whatnot. But yeah, in a sense. So always, well, it's in the slide. We go get to it. So, the great civilization of the blacks, which for countless ages was centered around Norway, which is Thebes, did not just happen. Progress does not happen automatically. Every forward step made by these early blacks was made. By these early blacks was made. You might even say forced by the imperatives of what had to be done to survive. Bear in mind that spiritual survival was more important than physical. A concept the modern world is not expected to understand at all. South of Chocolate City. There's always been more than one Chocolate City. but yeah, you can liken it to that. But also, when Chancellor Williams talks about this, it's always, viewed with this architecture of, to house the spirit and not the body. How can I put this? Because even with like, should be Thebes. It should be the city of living, the city of the dead. On both banks of the Nile, right? But you always, with the hieroglyphics and everything, you always see with the civilization that the spiritual, or is more important than the physical. In the sweet by and by, we will sound familiar. But anyway, heaven lasts always. Girl, you better bash Mr. Head in and think about heaven later. But sound familiar though, right? You have the the Book of the Dead, the Field of Reeds, and the basically this epic adventure from life to death. You know what I'm saying? And passing on. You know what I'm saying? And then you have all basically this sort of cheat sheet. You know what I'm saying? In your hand, and you have to have all these confessions. And you gotta weigh your heart, and then if you don't weigh your heart weighs more than the fella. Dago, crocodile, hippopotamus, the mutant. It's gonna eat you up, eat your soul alive. And then and then it's gonna be weighed by a jackhammer god, and then you can see this cute chick with a feather in her head. You see what I'm saying? Who can make this up but us? But not, but who? all this happens to us. This will never happen to nobody else in the sense. But yeah, it's so much to it. And then, that's just the papyrus Annie, which is, younger. The older ones, bits and pieces, fragments, but a lot of it's lost. You know what I'm saying, in a sense. But yeah, man. I hope that gets okay. Now, if the blacks today want to measure the distance to the heights from which they have fallen, they need go no further than Norway, Thebes. Sometimes, which is like message, but you can say that with a lot of melanin rich civilization. You want to see how you falling? Look at what you have built, and then just look at yourself. You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, you can't build pyramids, but you ain't trying to build at least something cooler than that. Something cooler than that. Along the lines. You know what I'm saying, or things like that, or just building something in stone. Nobody does that. I mean, at least in this, you do have like the play. Well, I would say the Pueblos, and they had villages in the mountains. But I'm just saying, there's so much you can build. There's so much you can enterprise with. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes all you have to do is look at early melanin rich civilizations to figure that out. You know what I'm saying? They built this. They built that. What should we be building? I think we should be doing this. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, man. But it's good that Chancellor Williams put this in here though, because that's telling, But it also shows what you should be doing. And you don't have to go that far back. Just look at what happened in the last century. Yeah, last century. And look how far you've fallen. Look at what you did after slavery, and then look how far you fall. You know what I'm saying? Or measure your distance from there. Okay, we have this, but look at what all we lost. Dang. We had a bunch of businesses, but now we don't have them no more. We had a bunch of this, like you said, what did it, he was talking about integration and how, if it wasn't accepted, oh man, we would have, fixed our problems and would, got back to running this business and been like gangbusters. We'd be like every other dang on ethnicity in this country. You know what I'm saying? We wouldn't have lost nothing. You know what I'm saying? We probably all, a bunch of rich kids stuck up, have movies called Crazy Rich Black People. But we still married though. But yeah, man. Just something to think about. Okay, many temples where what we would call colleges, as the different fields of study and form here, religious sciences and architectural design spread abroad. The early Greeks and Romans eagerly copied from both, reshaped them, and made them integral parts of an original Western culture. And that's in quotation marks. So yeah, okay. One book my Baba used to always point to, which I have to read back because I can't find my copy, is Stolen Legacy, which goes to the, how the mystery system was co-opted, or the philosophical and other things. But the mystery system of Egypt, of Kemet, was co-opted by the Greeks. And it goes into how it got done, and why they called themselves the father of philosophy and father of this, but they didn't do all of that. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, man. A lot of things have been stolen, what I'm saying, or burnt to the ground. Ain't that right, Alexandria? This is what happens when you put all your dang on records in one dang on place and then don't expect some people to be who they are already. Burn books. It's happened more than once. So I mean, it's that recurrent thing, But yeah, man. Or you allow somebody to put them all in one place, and then burn into them, So yeah. In the case of the Greeks unwillingly applied the second name of the city of Memphis, Egyptos, to the whole country. For Memphis was called Hikupita, or the mansion of the soul of Ptah, the god protector of the city. From the Greek Egyptos, Memphis became Egypt, and Egypt became the name of the two lands extending from the Mediterranean to the first cataract. So I told you, we are looking at this from a Euro, at this ancient place or this ancient satellite from a European view. Their names are used, like I say, it's called Hikupita, but what we call it, Memphis, and then they call it Egyptos, and then they put it, that's the whole place. You know what I'm saying? And are they saying we all look alike? Apparently to them we do. Yeah, only we know the difference. But yeah, see, stereotypes. But yeah, man, that's how it started. So now you put into context on basically how Egypt became Egypt, and how these names got to be what they are, and how they're still called these names, but no one calls them by their original name. You know what I'm saying? And dang, that's another slide. We gonna get into it. See, that's another slide. So yeah. Okay, now this is Memphis. Now, if you don't understand, I had to do it. North Memphis. Okay, that's that Memphis team. But but if you get, it, the way Memphis is where it's at, you would say it's in the north. So you'd be like, North Memphis, and it's the same thing. You can just, this place is still on the river. It's just there. You can't. But yeah, man. So I wanted to show, not ruins, but at least some type of computer texture look on the city. You know what I'm saying? Because like you always see ruins and things like that, but you never see these places for what they look like. You know what I'm saying? And this is the Temple of Luxor, computer generated. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, usually you see it, in ruin form. But like I say, sometimes it's always better to see it as it once was, you know what I'm saying? Not as what it looks like now, you know what I'm saying? like a dead ruin, you know what I'm saying? But a place that had life and was full, you know, and was full of life, you know what I'm saying, in a sense. Whew. Okay, now we're gonna get into this.
World, the teachings and wisdom of the ancient mystery schools. The secrets of the mystery schools seemed lost to history when in 1937 a most unusual man again reopened a window into this culture and the magical technology that was its legacy. R.A. Schwaller-Dulubitz was a latter-day alchemist, as well as an accomplished mathematician, chemist, author, and philosopher. Schwaller opened a window into the lost magic and mentality of the ancients. Through an ingenious reinterpretation of the evidence, Schwaller recreated a model of ancient Egypt that resurrects the ancient secrets for modern eyes. Understanding the mentality of the ancient world through the decoding lens of symbolism, Schwaller showed the Egyptians were not the superstitious savages modern Western academic thought holds them to have been. Instead, he showed example after example of high wisdom and accomplishment, not only equaling that of modern science, but in some instances far surpassing modern abilities. The key that unlocked the ancient veil lie in a slight change in perspective of mindset. As one learns to enter the mindset of pharaonic Egypt, the cryptic message from the past comes to life and allows access to previously invisible and unimagined realms of consciousness, understanding, and ability. The crux of the old teachings was contained and transmitted through what Schwaller called sacred science. Sacred science was the original unified source of the myriad streams of modern mysticism, occultism, esotericism, and magical disciplines that exist today. It is also the unified source for such diverse contemporary sciences as chemistry, physical science, philosophy, medicine, astronomy, geometry, architecture, music, and mathematics. Through the linchpin of sacred sciences, Schwaller not only showed an original unity of the material sciences, but even shed new light on such shadowy subjects as the tarot, astrology, and many, many other forms of magic. Schwaller spent over a decade on-site at Luxor Temple, which would come to be known as the Temple of Man. It was here that he performed his master work.
A latter-day Renaissance man. He was born in the 1890s, died in the early 1960s, and was, among other things, a practicing latter-day alchemist, and very much deeply involved in alchemy. He was also thoroughly conversant with the esoteric and mystical traditions of the East, and at the same time equally conversant and familiar with the modern developments in science, mathematics, physics, and so on. It was Schwaller who, in 2 decades of work in Egypt, mainly at the Temple of Luxor, who reformulated in transmittable and accessible fashion the wisdom of the ancients. It is through Schwaller that we're able, for the first time, to actually gain access to the doctrine, the sacred science or sacred sciences responsible for those astonishing resonating temples, pyramids, and tombs. Prior to Schwaller, there was a long-standing tradition dating back to the Greeks themselves in which ancient Egypt was the fount of all wisdom, which subsequently degenerated and dispersed over time. But prior to Schwaller, it was impossible to actually argue from documented evidence that this was indeed the case. Schwaller provides the documentation in impeccable form. It's there to be disproved if anyone can do so. In the 50 years since Schwaller produced the body of his work, a number of scholars have abused him roundly, but none have actually offered anything resembling satisfactory disproof or discredit to his extraordinary works.
In its own way, the Temple of Man was a kind of Rosetta Stone. It contained the means within itself, Chwala, to decode and reconstruct the layers and subtleties of the symbolic and sacred technology of the ancient mysteries. Chwala showed that the temple was not just the location of the teaching, but was itself the teaching. Its hieroglyphics and harmonic proportions contained a catalogue of the occult laws, sacred geometry, and archetypal forces that combined to make the universe and its culmination, living man. Through a chain of analogies, occult correspondences, sacred geometry, and symbolism, the temple itself becomes the actual technology through which one can undergo the initiation process and begin to experience the mentality and magic of the ancients. The temple echoes and amplifies the great arcanum, as above, so below. Man and the cosmos can be seen to be magically analogous, governed by the same rules of sacred geometry, each an octave of the other. After Chwala's death, the torch was picked up by a new generation of symbolists, one of the most venerated of whom is John Anthony West. West brought the obscure French work to the public eye in the symbolist classic Serpent in the Sky. West not only rekindled Chwala's revelations, but built upon them in a manner that acted like a fulcrum, upsetting the Stoic worlds of archaeology, theology, and science. When Serpent was published, shockwaves erupted as evidence that lay in full view of all at the very sight of the Great Sphinx exploded. An observation by Chwala, mentioned in passing, caught West's attention. Chwala noticed and recorded the fact that vertical fissures cut deep into the walls of the Sphinx enclosure. These vertical fissures were unmistakable signs of precipitation-induced erosion. They were the telltale sign of exposure to years and years of rain. But it hasn't rained to any considerable extent in the Sahara Desert since before the Ice Age.
It seems to suggest that the Sphinx was there prior to those catastrophic events that put the rest of the civilization down.
West enlisted the help of geologist Robert Schoch to present a revised model of Egyptian history based on geological data, including the evidence that suggests that this man-made structure shows signs of exposure to weather conditions that haven't been present since the harsh end of the last Ice Age. Could this be proof that the Sphinx, or at least the Sphinx enclosure, was the product of an even older civilization, predating the catastrophic events at the end of the last Ice Age?
Okay, so you know, my Baba used to always talk about how, I need to, read Swallow de Lupus. That's important. Reminds me of the Northern Heavenly Set from Legend of the Northern Blade, where the physical location of the set itself was a scroll that only the successor knew about or could read. Man. and okay. Of course, this is a conversation that only me and Master Middle will have. Legend of the Northern Blade. And what was it, Master Million? It was ruinous. It was a ruinous place. But it will remind you of that, because what? Every brick, just an entire scroll. It's like an entire bamboo scroll, I'm talking about, or an entire papyrus. And all you had to do was sit on the top and just bang. You learning. You just, and that's all. Well, For those that don't know what Legend of Northern Blade is, it's a demo. Yeah, for sure, man. It's a manhwa, Korean for manga, or what we consider a comic book. But manga is sort of different because comics come out with issues, where mangas come out in volumes. They're like mini books, you know what I'm talking about. And the one we're talking about, this Korean manga, is called Legend of Northern Blade. It's like a Chinese wuxia, or martial arts genre of TV show, but in manga, but in comic book form, but it's Korean, you know what I'm talking about. And it's oh man, it's phenomenal, man. It's about this. Oh man, I can tell you so much about it, because oh my goodness, they got Northern Heavenly set, so many, you got to mess with your dang up. And even then, see, look at it. And even then, you have so many different types of factions. You have that set. You have what was they called? I don't know. I ain't, then you have the and I just was looking at it yesterday. The Alliance. What was the Alliance name? It don't matter, but yeah. But it's cool though, it's really cool. But yeah, what he's talking about, for those that don't know, it's the same thing. But obstacle wrestling. But it's okay. You know what I'm talking about? It all helps, because like I said, my Bible always told me, get books on Swallow the Lupus. And I got a few. But he was like, and he used to always talk about, one of the books called Temple of Man, which basically breaks down basically the sacred geometry of basically, you could say, the Temple of Luxor, things like that. But you have to know. He was like, you have to know mathematics in order to read that book, because if you don't know, if you don't know geometry and things like, you're going to get lost. So you better off read the other books, unless you really know math. You really got to be a mathematician in order to know that book. So if you are trying, look, unless you know math, and understand mathematical language, then you can read Temple of Man and get it. But if you don't, but that's the beauty of the mystery systems. You know what I'm talking about? You have, like it was said, there was no religion that there was no philosophy that wasn't religious. There was no religion that wasn't philosophical. Same thing. You have a mathematical spiritual platform, equation to your temples and everything. Everything is connected. You know what I'm saying? And then you look at, multi-geniuses like, Imhotep, and you be like, of course that place could produce such a person. Look at its cultural educational system in a sense. It's all connected. It's all interconnected. That was the beauty of it. At least that's why I liked it, because everything was all interconnected. And as you can see, even the temples represent the body of man. And things like that. Chambers and holy holies. And, oh my, it gets deep, and that's just one part. But yeah, man. I mean, it's a lot if you like Egyptology and you want, because that's one thing that I think Egyptologists you really don't focus on or they don't care, the spiritual philosophical or you would say the esoterics of Kemet, you know what I'm saying? Because it gets deep sometimes, you know what I'm saying? It can get deep in a sense, But yeah, man, it's a lot, what I'm talking about. So, Okay. The Africans' literal belief in immortality was reflected in their buildings and burial arrangements. The early three-step chamber brick mastabas foreshadowed the later pyramids that were to surround the city like watchmen and form a line of march from there into the Giza Desert. So here's the mastaba. Now that's the first recorded burial chamber that the early Kemites built. You know, if you look at it, you can still see, you know, the matriculation of what you would see in the pyramids. You know, same same chambers and things like that. And there's two here, but you know, like I say, that's the first step. You know what I'm talking about? That is the first step, right there. You know. It did. I just put this picture here because, you know, this that step pyramid, you know, Emotep, you know, the land of Saqqara, you know what I'm talking about. That's my favorite place. So, you know, a lot of step pyramids there, you know, and we gonna get into it because of the simple fact that, you know, it's gonna be talked about in the video. But yeah, that's the step pyramid. So as you can see, it keeps on going. You know, first step, now you get the step, you know what I'm talking about. You know, so that's what. And then you get the big three, you know what I'm talking about? So as you can see, you know what I'm saying, you got, you know, the three Giza pyramids, you know what I'm saying, and the small pyramids right here. But man, you get a lot, man. I'm telling you right now. You know what I'm talking about? It's so much. I would also say, you know, the first big pyramid was built by Khufu, and then, you know, the second one Khephren, and then the other one Menkaure. I used to always call him, you know, I used to always know him as Khephren, but now they call him Menkaure. But yeah. Now, Khufu's nephew, Khephren, carried on and built the second Great Pyramid, but he went further. He built the Great Sphinx, and as though he intended to settle the question of his racial identity for all ages to come, he had his African features so boldly and clearly carved into a portrait statue that not even a fool could seriously doubt that his mighty monarch was a Negro. He was therefore among the first to break with the classical Caucasoid stereotypes in Egyptian portraits. So we already know that, you know, as from the video, that, you know, the Sphinx is way older than people think it is, you know. But, you know, the actual bust, you know what I'm saying, was said to be carved out by, you know, Khafre, you know. And which also brings to mind of the nose being shot off by, you know, Napoleon's army. You know, it was shot off, you know. That's why I don't have no nose, you know. But yeah, before that happened, you know what I'm saying, it did have it, but they shot it off. And also, since me just thinking about it, now, if you look at the pyramids, you can see, if you look at the old, you know, in a sense, if you look at, you know, the Giza pyramids now, they're not smoothed. You know what I'm saying? But in this one, you see basically the limestone casing and things like that. Which brings me to another desecration. You know, that casings from the pyramids was used for Cairo, to build the city of Cairo, for those that don't know. And it was also used to build a fort, a military fort, and which was also in Cairo. You know, so that's why you don't see the great casing of or the limestone casings, you know, limestone casings that was on the pyramids. You know, they just look like bricks, but they didn't all. That's not how the finished product looked. Let's just keep say it like that, So these places have, if you look at it, these places have been desecrated by people that say they from there, but they ain't from there. Grave robbed by people that say they're from there, but ain't. So that's just to bring into more context, what I'm talking about. Thank you, Masculinity Century Heavenly Alliance. Okay. Now, the determination of African names and their meanings will spearhead a real Black revolution, because it will lead directly to the emancipation of our still enslaved minds. It will be the great intellectual reawakening of a people whose world outlook through Caucasian eyes have been dimmed. So, like I was saying earlier, it's important to call these names for what they really are, or call these pharaohs or people by their original names. Even if they're very long. Look, I mean, my favorite one is Ramses II. He has a long September. Well, it should be September. It's like it's hard to say, but that's his real. But that's that was the name he was given, and then now they just it's Ramses. But it's all these people have very different names, and their names, like with any attribute, says a lot about them. And we don't touch on it, man. We don't touch on it, man. So, but that's just to bring it to context, and we don't call these places by their original names. So we sort of dim the power of these places in history because of the eyes that were looking at them and then told them that's what they mean. So that's something to, something to think about, some, but also, but yeah, I'll just say it like that. Okay, now we gonna get into this one. 1 second. Let me get it. Where is it? It should be.
Kings and one African kings in one kingdom before Jesus Christ was born. How did Africans worldwide and Afro-Americans get in the shape they're in? How did these great kingdoms, this great civilization, fall to civilizations that didn't come along until thousands of years after theirs were already established?
Well, it wasn't done overnight. Their great empires were built through their industry, through their enterprising, through their industry in so many fields. And the whole societies, as I point out in the book, in practically all of them, were organized in lodges. This is where the organization of workers, but they regard themselves as craftsmen. And each working group, whether it's building boats, or whether they were stone masons or brick masons, or whether they were carpenters or whatnot, each craft was organized into a lodge. In fact, the educational system was similarly organized on a basis of 3 levels. And so you had a society that went in for production. The people who were specialized in growing rice or cotton or peppers or what have you, did so not as Africans do today. Africans hardly get Africans generally today to go on a subsistence level. Just enough for themselves, as though they're scared to produce a surplus for export and to sell the areas which do not produce the same things which they produce, and buy from the other people the things which the other people produce and which they don't have, which is trade, which is progress, which is the basis of wealth worldwide. See, what they're talking about, Reaganism and that sort of stuff, there isn't anything new. The Africans were doing that tens of thousands of years ago, a system of life. So they had regular trading posts established in different villages in other countries. They had trading routes. They crossed the Sahara into other lands with merchandise, camels loaded with merchandise of spices, whatever the people produce. They were an industrious people. And they sold, and they would import as well as export. And this is what made them great. I try to emphasize that when you talk about the great African empires, they didn't just become great overnight, just great. No, they became great by doing specific things. They were great people. They were industrious people. They were builders. They were producers. The whole nation was fired to produce, and they were rewarded for their work. And so they built cities and so forth and so forth. And so this is why you had this great system of nation building becoming so mighty. Now, why did they fall? They fell when this began to decline internally, and when the forces, the external forces, over centuries of effort, finally gained the day. These nations had laws, strict laws, barring foreigners from coming to the interior. Then the same system of gradually settling around the borders, that is foreign traders, and supposed to be traders, but most of them were geographers and others representing the foreign, would establish little trading posts, just ask for permission to establish trading posts on the border. We don't want to come in, we don't come in, we just want to do business with you. We want to sell you what we have, we want to buy some of what you have. Well, the Africans were great traders, always great traders. So that was one of the weaknesses. They allowed them to settle along the borders, for one thing. The second thing that happened, and this went on, as I point out in the destruction, for several thousand years before the certain countries were finally taken. And when they were taken, like Egypt, look how many times Egypt was taken and retaken.
You say blacks gave up Egypt. Are you saying the Egyptians were black?
Of course the Egyptians were black. The name comes from the name itself, has an origin in the name of a black king. So that it became, the Egyptians were black until it became otherwise. They're not black today, and they're just like those who occupy the northern part of the Sudan are not black today. They are partly Arab, mostly Arab, and some of them are mixed, the Afro-Arabs, you might call them.
You spend quite a bit of time in your book describing the ancient civilization of Ethiopia. What is it you find important about that civilization?
Well, the ancient civilization of Ethiopia was the civilization of what we're talking about when we talk about that whole stretch of land from the Mediterranean to the source of the Nile, which was ancient Ethiopia. So Egypt was nothing but what we call Egypt now, which was Chem, before the name was changed, was nothing but a northern province of the Ethiopian Empire.
You have a chapter here, Ethiopia's oldest daughter, Egypt. And I'd like to read you a statement you made and get you to comment on.
Okay, that's Chancellor Williams. That's the author of the book, and he telling me like it is in his own words, you know. So Now we gonna get back back with Cheikh, man. I mean, or as my boss used to say, Shank and a Joe. You know, you just call him Cheikh and a Joe. You never call, you used to say Cheikh and a Diop, but then you used to say, oh, Cheikh and a Joe. You know, but yeah.
Très, si vous voulez, plus, comme nous disons, vous m'aviez dit tout à l'heure de ne pas employer un terme, mais sur le plan scientifique, c'est un terme consacré. En tout cas, il a des traits de la race noire plus marqués que celles de presque tous ceux qui sont ici dans cette salle.
You can see that he has those traits that are associated with the black
feature.
Those features associated with the black race, which are even more pronounced than many of the people here. It was this man who unified the Nile Valley from Upper to Lower Egypt, and this was 3,300 years before Jesus Christ.
Yes. Je passe donc, ce que je vais dire avant de passer au suivant, c'est que vous allez le voir donc, déjà d'après ces traits, et les traits aussi des pharaons qui vont suivre.
You can see by his features and those of the pharaohs and kings that will follow it,
que les anciens Égyptiens n'étaient pas des blancs qui seraient devenus progressivement noirs et en perdant leurs traits.
You can see that they were not a people that were started as whites and became progressively more black.
Mais qu'au départ, c'était des noirs authentiques qui, à la basse époque, vont se métisser avec des blancs.
They were instead a black people, an authentic black people, but which never ceased to be blacks.
Donc, attendez, je dis en un mot. Donc, vous voyez que les anciens Égyptiens étaient des noirs comme tous les autres naturels de l'Afrique, c'est tout.
You can see that the first the Egyptians were black men, like black men that you see in Africa now.
Ici, cette reproduction est importante.
This is a very important reproduction.
C'est dans le tombeau de Ramsès III.
This is found in the tomb of Ramses III.
20e dynastie.
The 20th dynasty.
Vous avez le personnage de gauche.
The person on the left.
C'est le type général, donc, représenté par l'artiste égyptien lui-même.
This is the general type represented by the Egyptian artist himself.
Le second, c'est le type général de tous les Européens, si vous voulez, de tous les Occidentaux.
And the second person or personage is the general type of all the Europeans represented by the artist.
Le troisième, c'est le type général de tous les autres noirs de l'intérieur du continent.
And the third personage is the general type representing all the other groups found in the interior of the continent.
Of Africa.
Of the continent of Africa.
Oui. Le quatrième, c'est le type général de tous les Sémites habitant l'Asie.
The fourth personage is the general type of all of the Semites living in that area of Asia.
Et ceci est un tableau ethnographique. Voilà les races qui existaient à l'époque, telles que les Égyptiens les ont connues, vues et représentées.
This is
the different races.
The different races represented by the artist, and these are the races that existed in his time as he saw them.
Nous sommes à 1200 avant Jésus-Christ.
We are 1,200 years before Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Donc, vous voyez que les Égyptiens ne se sont jamais confondus avec les Européens.
So the Egyptians were never confused with the Europeans.
Ni avec les Sémites.
Nor with the Semites.
Et qu'ils ne se sont jamais différenciés sur le plan de la couleur, n'est-ce pas, sur le plan ethnique des Africains.
And they never became different on an ethnic plane from the other Africans.
Regardez, ces reproductions sont assez significatives à ce point de vue.
So this is fairly significant from this point of view.
Or, cette image, c'est la première fois, depuis que Lepsius, c'est un relevé d'un savant allemand qui s'appelle Lepsius.
This was discovered by a German scientist who is called Lepsius.
Et vous ne l'avez jamais vu reproduit dans un autre ouvrage avant cette projection.
And before this, you have not seen this reproduced in any other form
Dans
or
un
work,
livre.
or any other work.
Vous voyez donc, c'est de cette manière que la science, n'est-ce pas, s'est écartée petit à petit de la réalité et de la vérité historique en ce qui concerne l'Égypte.
And so you can see how history departed little by little from the reality.
How did ancient writers describe the ancient Egyptians?
Tous les écrivains grecs et même romains de l'Antiquité ont déposé dans le même sens pour nous affirmer que les anciens Égyptiens de leur époque, pourtant qui étaient déjà très métissés, étaient des Noirs.
All of the writers of ancient Greek and ancient Rome agreed that the Egyptians of their epoch, of their time, were in fact black.
Or, cette Égypte-là, c'est l'Égypte de la fin, donc de l'histoire égyptienne.
But these were the Egyptians of the end of the great Egyptian civilization.
Et Jésus-Christ, ça fait donc une période de 900 ans.
For a period of some 900 years, beginning at the 4th century before Jesus Christ and going through the 5th century after, the Greeks were constantly witnessing to the fact that the Egyptians were black.
Donc, les Égyptiens sont considérés comme des Noirs depuis l'origine jusqu'à la fin de leur histoire.
So they would be considered black from their origins, from their beginnings, all the way to the end of their civilization, as is indicated by the first king, the slide which we saw.
Alors, les autres, je vous les montre rapidement. Je passe rapidement là-dessus.
I will show you quickly the others.
Ici, vous avez Djoser, 3e dynastie,
You have-
2778 avant Jésus-Christ.
This is the 3rd dynasty of the Egyptian civilization here.
Disons 2800.
2800
Tout à-
BC.
Avec Djoser, tous les éléments technologiques de la civilisation égyptienne étaient déjà en place. Tout ce que nous admirons en Égypte, sous ce pharaon noir, existait déjà.
3e dynastie.
3e dynastie, avant les pyramides donc. La seconde, ça va être celle des pyramides. Eh bien, avec Djoser, tous les éléments de la civilisation égyptienne étaient déjà en place.
With this king, in the 3rd dynasty, all of the things that we admire the Egyptians for were already in place.
Nous verrons que c'est sous son règne que l'architecture en pierre de taille va être inaugurée, la grande architecture égyptienne.
The great Egyptian architecture was evolved under his reign.
2300 ans avant la naissance de l'architecture en Grèce. 2300 ans avant la naissance de l'architecture.
2,300 years before the birth of architecture in Greece.
Et aussi 2000 ans même avant la naissance, on peut dire qu'à cette époque-là, les Grecs n'existaient même pas encore dans l'histoire.
It can be said that at that point, the Greeks didn't even exist in history.
Yes. La mathématique, la
Mathematics,
médecine,
medicine,
tout était déjà présent sous ce pharaon.
everything was already in place during his reign.
Donc, la civilisation égyptienne dont nous parlons est née, n'est-ce pas, sous le règne de ces pharaons typiquement africains.
And so civilization, or Egyptian civilization as we know it, was born under the reign of these pharaohs.
Ici, vous avez le Sphinx.
This is the Sphinx.
Lors de la mission française qui accompagnait Napoléon, quand Napoléon est allé en Égypte, il était accompagné d'une mission de savants. Ce sont des Français qui sont comme ça sur le Sphinx, qui font des mesures.
These are Frenchmen who were part of on top of the Sphinx. They are measuring there on top of the Sphinx. They were part of a mission that accompanied Napoleon. I'm sorry.
Au 19e siècle.
In the 19th century.
Vous voyez que le profil du sphinx à cette époque-là était encore plus typiquement africain que maintenant.
You see that the profile of the Sphinx at that time was more authentically African than it is now.
Depuis, l'érosion l'a détruit encore un petit peu. Vous savez, le vent de sable constamment qui frappe le visage.
The wind and the sand has eroded the Sphinx considerably.
Et vous savez que le nez du Sphinx est au British Museum.
The nose of the Sphinx is in the British Museum.
Et on aurait pu le récupérer pour revoir un peu quel était le visage. L'Égypte pourrait très bien essayer de le récupérer. Ça, c'est au moins la moindre des choses.
And they are unable, the Egyptians are unable to have it back again to compare it with the Sphinx.
Mais peut-être que ces traits sont si typiquement africains que personne n'a envie de les reconstituer tels qu'ils étaient.
It's perhaps because the features are so typically African that no one wants to see that comparison be made.
When was the slide, this drawing rendered done?
Est-ce que vous pouvez nous dire la date de cette illustration?
2600 avant Jésus-Christ, c'est l'époque des pyramides. Ici, nous sommes sous la 4e dynastie. C'est le profil du pharaon Khéphren. C'est la 4e... Oui?
C'est pas le Sphinx qu'il veut savoir, c'est l'illustration à l'époque où Napoléon était là, n'est-ce pas?
Oui.
C'était quand?
C'est 1800, à la fin du 19e siècle, fin 19e siècle.
The end of the 19th century.
Je passe. Ici, vous avez donc ici Amenophis Ier, vous voyez qu'il est typiquement africain. Donc, vous voyez que les pharaons ne se peignent pas toujours le corps en ocre rouge. C'est une habitude africaine. Tous les peuples africains, depuis la haute préhistoire, ont l'habitude de se peindre le corps en ocre rouge.
This is Amenhotep I, and you can see that this is he with his natural skin color. He is not painted.
Vous voyez aussi que ses cheveux sont crépus.
And you can also see that his hair is kinky.
Disons, c'est cette dynastie qui va conquérir toute l'Asie occidentale.
It is this dynasty represented here that conquers all of the Western world.
Yeah. Toute l'Asie occidentale.
All of Western Asia.
Et aussi toutes les îles de la mer Égée.
And also all of the Aegean Sea.
C'est une époque d'impérialisme africain.
This is a period of African imperialism.
À cette époque, c'est l'Afrique noire qui avait l'initiative historique.
It's at that point that Africans had the imperial initiative.
Et dominer tous les autres peuples, soit de la mer Égée, donc de la Méditerranée orientale ou de l'Asie occidentale.
And they dominated all of the people from the Mediterranean all the way into the Far East.
Un pharaon de cette dynastie,
pharaohs of this dynasty,
qui s'appelle Thutmose III,
who were called Thutmose III,
avait conquis 111 États.
Conquered
111 États au total.
111 states in all.
Il les avait conquis et qui étaient entrés il les a intégrés dans l'Empire égyptien.
And they made them part of the Egyptian Empire.
Ici, vous voyez Ramsès II et un Tutsi. La parenté est frappante aussi entre la coiffure du pharaon, la coiffure du Tutsi et le casque du pharaon.
Here you have Ramses II and a Tutsi warrior. It's remarkable the similarity between the Tutsi's hairdo and the helmet worn by the pharaoh.
Or, ce pharaon est encore un des plus prestigieux justement de toute l'histoire égyptienne.
He is certainly one of the most prestigious of the Egyptian pharaohs.
Vous voyez que des deux côtés, vous n'avez que la même réalité africaine, la même réalité anthropologique africaine.
And you see the same reality, anthropological reality, that is African, the similarities between the two.
Aussi, ça c'est Mentuhotep Ier.
All right. So that's shaking. You know, like I said, I'm just gonna leave it right there. But just to always see um that that picture, you know, when he shows, you know, the four people, you know, I just say four people, you know, because my Baba had it framed up in his office, you know, and he went through A, B, C, C, and D, you know what I'm saying? So I always used to just look at it, but I just stare at it and whatnot. But yeah, man. And then, you know, at the end, you see the war crown. You know, I've always liked that war crown. Blame bang on 10 Commandments, but but yeah, and then you see where it comes from, you know. It's like, well, Tussies, what the Tussies, Rwanda. And what do we really know about the interior? I was saying, man, there's probably a lot you don't know. You know, there's a lot you don't know. There's a lot, you know, nobody don't want you to know. If I don't go digging over there. You but yeah, man. I mean, oh my goodness. Like I say, when it comes to Kemet, man, we can keep on going with it. We can keep on going with it. But yeah, man. So join us next strong. Because I be, hey, like I said, these things go long. I can't keep y'all because for some of y'all on the East Coast, y'all gotta get to bed. So join us next strong. You know what I'm talking about. And we're going to talk about, you know, basically, you know, the African constitutions or African democracy, you know, still going on with destruction of black civilization, you know. So that's what we're going to do next strong. You know, we're going to talk about that, which is not talked about, you know, but you know, Chancellor Williams talked about it a little bit, you know what I'm talking about. And like I say, man, I mean, I can watch, you know, Shay, you know, you see Shay, you know, he just, you know, he just, like I say, he all regal. But if you look at that dude, I'm like, man, you sort of resemble, I mean, I can see, you know, a little bit of, you know, Thomas Sankara, you know, facial structure, you know, Patrice, you know, especially that nose. But, you know, but he's just regal like that, man. You know, but like I say, man, these platforms, you know what I'm talking about, that house, you know, or gave light, you know, to our warrior scholars, man. We should really, you know, pay attention, look into them, man, because you don't know what gems you might find, you know what I'm talking about. You know, so yeah, man. I look, like I say, man, I used to see that all the time, and now, you know, see all these things, you know, or hear about all these things, because I used to have so many things on top of my Bible, and now I'm just sharing it all. You know what I'm saying? Somebody put me on this, more on this path, you know what I'm talking about, or more into this game, you know what I'm talking about, and show me all these people. So now I'm just sharing what I was taught, man, or what I was shown, you know what I'm talking about. So yeah, man. Man, yeah, give thanks, Cheikh. You know, I be trying to, you know, get up to your level, you know, but I mostly appreciate it because, you know, when it comes to some stuff like this, it's like, okay, you know, it's like coming up the bat, but not strike out, you know. But I try to give it as much justice as I can by not rambling on or anything like that, and try to make it interesting. You know, you got to make it interesting, you know. So yeah, but yeah, give thanks for that, Chief. I you know, it's my honor, and I greatly appreciate it, you know what I'm talking about. And give thanks for taking us on this journey with you. Oh man, you know, we all going on riding, on talking about. Just Bill Milton had an amazing show. He always had awesome guests, good brother to look up. Oh, for sure. I'm sure nothing gonna do that. Matter of fact, look, let me make sure. Okay. Look, already searching it, but since I couldn't copy, I had to do that right there. So I'm about to go look that up right now. See, you are already doing it. So we have our new fellowship, you know, tomorrow. Then we got, you know, midday affirmation. Also, check out, Touch the Land, out on all digital media platforms, by Chief Yuya. I like the song, but I keep on coming back to the song for the bass. You know what I'm talking about? I'm just gonna say that right now, Chief. You playing that bass, bro. you was playing that bass, and I like the bass, so I keep on coming back to the song for the bass. And then my favorite part right now is like, hey, my brother, you ever heard Peter Tosh? I love that line. Hey, like you say, my is hot. I love that line, like for real. So yeah, check it out, man. Check out Touch the Land. You know what I'm talking about? I'm plugging the cheat. You know what I'm talking about? But yeah, So for sure. But give thanks everybody. Oh, I never knew his name, Chief. I never knew that was Elizabeth Milton. I just, like, who's that guy? Like, I knew who Tony Brown was, but I didn't know his name. But yeah, I'm definitely gonna check out, see what else I can learn from him. But yeah, man. So yeah, check Chief out. You know what I'm saying? Also check out Chief podcast. But hey, the man makes music. He does it all. Said that's Big U for you. Like I say, he's Suge Knight. He's shooting out of New York. You know what I'm talking about? If you ever see the old pictures, I was like, this dude Suge Knight. He's New York Suge Knight. Hey, that's well, but yeah, man. So yeah, like I always say, man, we keep on growing around here. You know what I'm talking about? And everybody's doing something. Look, we had top tier speakers. You know what I'm talking about? They, which is M. Sequoia. Look, and then we got Emma Yakira Eden, and Elion always doing something to come help. Then we got Sister Maria, and then Master that came out with the honey wine, So, man, like I said, we keep on getting it going. So give thanks to everybody, and we will see y'all next. Well, I'll see you next round. So give thanks and peace.